tell us a little about the Carols for Choir series?
Yes, it was first published 50 years ago with publication of Carols for Choir 1 in 1961, and since then has grown into a very successful series of carol books, with publication of books 2, 3 and 4, 100 Carols for Choirs, and also 2 books of world carols. It's used all over the world by choirs of all types, by church choirs, concert choirs, and even by carol singers out in the streets. And finally, I'd say it contains some of the most famous English language carols, in particular the many fine Christmas hymn arrangements by David Wilcox and the many enduringly popular original compositions by John Rutter.
Why has OUP published a 5th book in the Carols for Choir series?
We wanted to celebrate that 50th anniversary, and even though there are many carols and carol books published, we wanted to offer something special and reach out to our audience in this anniversary year.
What makes Carols for Choirs 5 so special?
It contains 50 highly singable carols, including 40 brand new pieces from, I think it's 30 composers and arrangers drawn from all over the world, in particular from the UK and Europe, and from the US and Canada.
Can you give some examples of the carols that are in the book?
Yes, we got a number of traditional carols as well as a number of wholly new pieces. We've got composers like David Wilcox and John Rutter who link very much with the series, but we've also got a lot of new names like Gabriel Jackson and Kerry Andrew, and of course a whole set of wonderful new carols by the co-editor Bob Chilcott. We've got some really fine arrangements of traditional carols, including a really funky arrangement of Good King Wenceslas and a wonderfully colourful arrangement of We Three Kings.
What's the most satisfying thing about editing a collection like this?
I think for me it was a chance to interact with so many creative people to make a well-balanced anthology. For any collection to work, it's got to have an identity, it's got to have a consistency of approach, yet at the same time allow the different compositional voices to speak. And it was a really interesting process to work with the composers to try and achieve this. For us, a key underlying principle was to make the collection as accessible as possible. We were very aware that at this time of year, choirs often have very little rehearsal time. We wanted the pieces to leap off the page and be readily singable. And briefly, there were 2 musical aspects we brought to this. The first was to try and put as many carols as possible into short score, and it was often possible to work with the composers to modify the part writing a little to achieve that. And secondly, we wanted the pieces to be concise on the page, and introducing simple repetition was a good way to do that. Finally, as the collection came together, it was fascinating to see how inventive the arrangers could be. There are some very well-known pieces here, but I genuinely feel we've offered something fresh and original in this collection.
What do you think the success of the series is due to?
I think it's due to the creative energy of all the people who have been involved in it. The many composers and arrangers, and in particular the editors, Reginald Jakes and David Wilcox on book 1, and David and John Rutter on the other books. And Bob Chilcott and I are thrilled to be picking up the baton from those people and taking the series forward.
Carols for Choirs, I suppose, has always been the place to turn every time I plan a carol service as a conductor. But for me, as a young chorister, when I was at Salisbury, it was always the place that we turned to for all our carol services, and to get some of the best and most varied repertoire that we were looking for.
Well, I am of the generation which remembers the issue of the first Carols for Choirs, which was an incredible experience, really. I was a boy treble at that time. And I think it's transformed the way people think about music at Christmas time in church. And of course, you know, we're also moved by the King's carols and so on, and that wonderful place. And in a way, you could share a little bit of that very special Christmas experience that they produce at King's Cambridge in your own place, whether it's a very small parish church, a school hall, or a great cathedral. So yes, it's absolutely part of life.
Carols for Choirs is a resource which you can do concerts, you can do formal services, you can go carol singing in the street, if you've got an SATB choir, if you've got upper voice choir, just about anything. It's sold solves Christmas in just very small usable packages. And I've been using it all my
I
life.
have grown up with the Green Book and the Orange Book, the four books that we've had for years. I've used them all my life, and the Orange Book, the second book, even bears the teeth marks in the corner of our daughter, which was a little child, and she's now, well, she's 40 years old, so I've had them for a very long time. So it's wonderful to have a new book, a fresh collection to use with my choirs, alongside the old books that have become treasures for over the years. So I'm really, really looking forward to digging into this wonderful new book full of excellent composers and really interesting looking pieces.